Okay, it's 5:15. We're going to go ahead and start the meeting. This is the March 9th, 2023 meeting of Jefferson City Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Dale Vaughn. I am the chair of the commission. I would like to remind commission members to turn on their microphones when speaking and ask everyone present to please silence their phones and any other electronics during the meeting. We also have a guest sign-up sheet if you'd like to sign in as well. We'll go ahead and have the members introduce themselves, starting with the council liaison.
Mike Lester, council liaison.
Randy Hazelton, alternate member.
Tom Bordenhouse, alternate member.
Jacob Robinette.
Penny Quigg.
Bunny Tricky Cotton.
Emily Fretwell.
Shannon Hawk.
Shrika Young.
Courtney Bliss, City Planner.
Eric Barron, Planning Manager. And I'd like to introduce, before he has a chance, Mr. David Grellner behind me. So David has been appointed the Interim Director of Planning and Protective Services in between our past director and our new one, who will be starting on April 3rd. And David has been an employee for the city for longer than me, and so I'm not sure how many years, but within the Environmental Services Division, one of the partner divisions within the department to my own. And so that is why he is here tonight, and he's serving in that capacity till April 3rd.
Thank you for the introduction. I will tell you that my background is public health, so planning and zoning is something new to me, so that's why I'm sitting in, just to figure out how the process works. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Shane Wade, Public Works.
Dustin Birch, Assistant City Attorney.
Lisa Dittmer, Administrative Assistant.
The city code authorizes 9 regular members and 3 alternates. Alternates are designated to vote upon the absence or disqualification of regular members. A quorum of 5 members or alternates is necessary to conduct business. I declare that a quorum is present. The following regular members are absent this evening: Hank Vogt and Greg Butler. Are there any members who are disqualified from voting on any agenda item? Seeing none. The voting members, everyone that is present is eligible to vote. Is someone here to present, is someone in attendance to present this case? Case P23005. Actually, that first one is continued.
So, yes, Mr. Chair. So for the first case that's on the agenda this evening, 23005 at 2738 Rock Ridge Road, the applicant for that case, which is a company that would build a Dollar General at that location if rezoned. At least that's what their intent is. They sent in a request for continuance. The zoning code automatically, essentially, grants 1 continuance to an applicant, so they have one month continuance that they can receive automatically, and they've requested that. I've distributed that letter to you this evening, and so you can read and see what their cause is. And so if there's any members of the public that are here for that case, I'll announce that it won't be heard tonight. It'll be placed on the agenda for the April 13th meeting, and that's a Thursday, and be at 5:15 p.m. Located in this room. And new public notification procedures will go through all the public notification procedures again, which means updating the sign on the property, mailing new notices to all surrounding property owners within 185 feet, and a new legal notice in the newspaper in preparation for the April meeting.
Okay, thank you for the update, Eric. Is someone in attendance to present case number P23006 200 Militia Drive? Okay. Is someone in attendance to present case P23007 7000 Partnership Parkway? Thank you. Okay. Is someone in attendance to present case P23008 3420 North 10 Mile Drive? Okay. Is someone in attendance to present case P23009 901 Shot Hill Woods Court? Okay. Thank you. Are there, well, we have one request for continuance, but no other requests on any other agenda item. Okay. Are there any requests to reorder the agenda? Courtney, will you please read the format of the hearing and order of testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to briefly describe the procedures of the commission. The proceedings of the meeting are being recorded, so please step to the microphone when you speak and give your name and address for the record. The standard order of each case is as follows. After introduction of the request by staff, the applicant or their consultant will provide information on the request. The opening presentation by the applicant shall be limited to 10 minutes unless additional time is granted by the commission. The applicant shall have an additional 3 minutes for closing testimony if requested. We will then ask to hear from supporters of the request. We will then ask to hear from opponents of the request. We will then ask to hear from anyone else who wishes to speak on the request. Testimony shall be limited to 3 minutes each unless additional time is granted by the commission. City staff will then make the recommendations on the request. In order to reduce the time necessary to hear an application, references to printed materials, including staff reports and applicable findings, shall not be read into the record unless directed by the commission. The commission will close testimony from the floor. The commission will then discuss the proposal, then publicly make its determination with reasons. The form of motion shall be positive, that is, that the motion shall be made to accept the request as presented or with modifications, stipulations, or conditions. A final vote will be taken with ayes in favor and nays opposed. The chair shall announce the results of the vote, specifying the number of votes cast in favor and the number of votes cast against. The following documents are entered as exhibits for all items under consideration at this meeting: the City Code of the City of Jefferson as amended, the Comprehensive Plan and Land Use Map, copies of applications under consideration, a list of property owners to whom notices were sent, the affidavit of publication of the public notice to the newspaper, copies of drawings, plans, and/or renderings under consideration, letters or memorandum from staff, staff reports, minutes of proceedings, correspondence, or other materials submitted by the public or the applicant. Rules of procedure for the Jefferson City Planning and Zoning Commission. These items are a public record and available for inspection through the Department of Planning and Protective Services or through the Office of the City Clerk. Please be advised that any items that are presented, received, or distributed pertaining to the cases under consideration become the property of the Commission. This includes any photographs, drawings, petitions, and letters. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney. Let's see. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as printed?
Wait, Mr. Chair, if we could, as amended with the first case
Got it.
removed.
That's okay. Yeah, we were. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
A
Second.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Can I have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 12th, 2023? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. And we have not received any communications other than from the first case, correct?
No, we received a significant number of communications on the first case. We'll package those up and send that out to you with the case packet for next month.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to case P23006. Courtney, could you please present the case?
This property is located at the 200 block of Militia Drive and is zoned M1 Light Industrial. It is situated at the southeast corner of the intersection of Algo Road and Militia Drive. Again, it is zoned M1 Light Industrial. To the north is M1 Light Industrial zoning as well, with a publishing and printing facility. To the east is also M1 Light Industrial, with a warehouse and distribution facility. To the south is M2 with an electrical company. To the west is RU Rural with agricultural uses. This is a closer-up aerial of the site, and again, it is outlined in blue. And this property is approximately 12.5 acres in size. As you can see out there are site elements such as contour lines, sewer lines, things like that. And this property has been utilized by a topsoil company. What they're requesting, though, is on this site is a special exception use because they want to put there a truck stop / travel plaza, which according to the code, the zoning code, it is a special exception. Therefore, they need a special exception use permit. Those such permits go before the Planning and Zoning Commission for review, and then the commission gives a recommendation on to the City Council, and then the council will make that final decision. Special exception permits do have review criteria that get associated with them. The applicant has responded those such questions and is available in the case packet, and then the staff has also provided brief responses in the staff report, also located in the case packet. This is a site plan that they have for the proposal. And just a couple brief notes on it is that there is various locations where they will have wayfinding signage. So first I'll describe though, there are 2 driveways connected off of Militia Drive, and then there is 1 driveway connected off of Algoa Road. The northern driveway on Militia Drive, there is a wayfinding sign that indicates trucks only, and then on the southern side, the southern driveway access it has a wayfinding sign for passenger vehicles only. There is a notation for Algoa Road, modifications to be made to Algoa Road. There is, on the western side of the site, you can see that there are fuel dispensers for passenger vehicles, and then on the, that's on the west side. Then on the east side, there are notes on the site plan. It does display fuel dispensers for the larger trucks, and then it also shows that CAT scale or a certified automated truck scale. There's a building there as well. Here's the site plan the floor plan for that. And so in addition to the convenience store, it will have a trucker oriented spot, and it does have a few food entities as well. Here are a couple of examples from a different location, Bolivar, Missouri, where they've got another where they have a similar type of truck stop / travel plaza, and it gives an idea of what they're proposing as far as what the building would look like, what some of the signage would look like. So here's a few examples of such signage. Here's an example of the wayfinding signage. And then this is some of the building mounted signage examples. Those are the initial details of the request as far as it pertains to the special exception use permit for a truck stop / travel plaza. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney. Do any commissioners have any questions for Courtney? Do any commissioners have questions for staff? Seeing none, we will now hear from persons who would like to present this case. Please come forward to the microphone and give your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Birchfield, Silver Tree Companies with offices at 302 Campus View Drive in Columbia, Missouri. That's what you need? Okay. Thank you. An extensive amount of information has been provided to staff for this proposed development on Militia. The current zoning allows a convenience store, which is basically what this is, with the addition of the truck trailer plaza on the back side of it. It'd be the east side of it, I guess, in this site plan. And so the zoning code provides that although we could do just a normal convenience store, which would be everything on the side except for the back, to get the back, it takes the special exception approval. So that's why we're here tonight and have applied for that permit. As Courtney, we have read the staff reports, extensive, very comprehensive, and are in agreement with the staff report. The conditions for the city to grant a special exception, we meet that with regard to the character of the area and the services that are provided, and there's no redundancy of services. It's beyond just the truckers as well, and the truck traffic going to the Algoa Industrial Park area, generally speaking. Also, an important element of it is the food service piece of it that is just not existent in that area. We do work with one of the industries there. I don't want to exaggerate it, but I have with me tonight my partner in the venture, John States, who built the Command Web building 20-something years ago and has done several additions to it, works with Command Web all the time. And, you know, you hear that all the time. We have 30 minutes for lunch and there's nowhere to go. We can't get anywhere in that period of time. So food service, MFA Oil will be the tenant with break time. There's break times all over the place. We built a travel center, exact concept for them originally in Warrensburg, next to the Dollar Tree distribution center there when it went in. We've built one in Sedalia, just on the north side of Sedalia at the Nucor steel plant. And so they've, you know, identified this as a market area that they need to expand into. With the existing level of traffic and employees during the daytime and the transient truck traffic that's in the area, it makes an ideal site for that. And so they've incorporated in the smokestack barbecue food service option. They support the ice cream factory, ice cream treats, and then they'll have their normal food offerings, you know, the grab-and-go stuff that you have, including the Cooper's Chicken line of stuff. So the food service, the gas, Courtney mentioned the logistics of getting in and around the site and safety, and we've worked through all of that with MFA as our tenant, and not mixing truck-trailer traffic with the passenger cars as much as possible, as much as people can follow the signs that are guiding them. It doesn't always work ideally, but for the most part, the larger truck traffic will come in the southern entrance, go to their area in the back, and will exit back out onto Algoa. Algoa is a substandard road. It won't handle the additional traffic, but also for safety, we're going to improve it back past our driveway all the way back up to Militia, widen the approach at Militia to allow for the stacking and the turn radiuses that are needed to get on and or off of Militia at that point, and then primarily relegate the passenger car, normal car traffic to the front of the store and in and out of those two entrances. Andy Green is here with our engineering. The site, although it's 12 acres, there's only about 7 of it that is usable. It's bounded by the creek. You can see the drainage. It's kind of an ideal setup for that, for water quality measures that are put in place, our landscaping, site lighting, all of that will meet the city's code and be applicable there. So really, we're asking for a special exception. It's just to have the travel plaza portion of this convenience store. And again, John, my partner, is the contractor on it, and he also will own the real estate with us. And then our civil engineer is here as well to answer any questions. Thank you.
So is this comparable to the one in Ashland? Because off to the right, you see kind of a truck type thing, but it's maybe just for...
Similar to Ashland. We just finished, we own that store as well,
Right.
and lease it to MFA. We just finished that store this last year, and for that very reason of the truck traffic, the school bus traffic mixing with the passenger car, MFA came back and said, can we do a truck trailer area off to the side and not mix those two? So that was an afterthought that we came in and added that onto there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Brookfield? No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this request? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition of this request? Seeing none. Is there anyone else present who would like to just speak on this request? Seeing none. We will now close testimony. Courtney, please, staff report, please.
For the zoning staff report, the review criteria for the special exception use permit was taken into consideration, which involves several things like, does this proposed use run consistently with the zoning code and the comprehensive plan? What is its plausibility and compatibility with the site that it will be located on? And then also with respect to the adjacent properties. And then what would its impact be on the municipal services? And a few other notes would be that things that were looked into were things like parking, and there were over 50 parking spaces for passenger vehicles, and then also 35 spaces for the larger trucks. And then also there was a fire hydrant identified adjacent to Militia Drive over there by the intersection of where Algoa and Militia meet, but it's on the opposite side of the property. But in all, staff does recommend approval of the special exception use permit. The finer details of the whole site as it relates to all the intricate details will be reviewed with respect to the city code and the final construction drawings. And then I think the engineering, they have a report as well, I think. But I'll let them do.
Thank you, Courtney.
Sorry.
As far as the engineering review of the project, public infrastructure does exist in the vicinity. Rising Creek does bound the property on the east side. Sanitary sewer main exists on the east side of Militia Drive. Militia Drive is an existing arterial roadway serving the east end industrial area of Jefferson City. As far as the improvements go for the project, they are proposing 2 paved entrances from Militia Drive, additional paved entrance from Algoa Road. The expected trip generation for peak hour analysis for traffic for the project would anticipate that would exceed 100 peak hour trips. In lieu of that, though, the applicant has proposed to improve the inadequate portion of the roadway frontage at the intersection of Algoa and Militia Drive. This would allow for, as Mr. Birchfield had indicated, a separate left turn lane and better radiuses coming in and out of that site to serve both the roadway and also for the proposed use. New driveway access on Algoa Road would be widened past the driveway. Militia Drive is a 4-lane section currently and has 8 feet wide shoulders. It's a multi-lane facility that would allow for left turns into and right turns into and out of the site, and would have adequate width to provide additional improvements in the future if needed. As far as stormwater and erosion control go, there is a floodplain that exists along Rising Creek, so that'll have to be considered with the site development. Stream setback is shown on the plan for Rising Creek. The contributory area for the creek there at that point is greater than 50 acres. Stormwater quality is also proposed for the project. Sewer, as I'd indicated, does serve the property along Militia Drive. Sidewalk would not be required for the project. As far as utilities go, fire hydrants do exist along the frontage and are in accordance with city standards. Street lights do not exist currently on Militia Drive in this vicinity. And the site would need to be served by all necessary utilities, of course. The special exception plan has been reviewed and is in generally in good order from our review, and the engineering division would recommend approval of the special exception plan.
Thank you, Shane. Do any commissioners have any questions for staff? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion?
I move that we recommend approval of the requested special exception use permit for a truck stop travel plaza within the M1 Light Industrial Zoning District.
Second. Okay. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Courtney, this will proceed on to city council
April 3rd
Sorry.
for introduction. No, it's good. April 3rd, and then it'll be up for a vote on April 17th. Both held here in the council chambers at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to case number P23007, 700 block of Partnership Way. Parkway, excuse me. Courtney, could you please present the case?
This is located at the 700th block of Partnership Parkway. It is zoned M2 light industrial. It's currently is undeveloped, and then to the north is also zoned M2 with an electrical company. To the east is M2 and it is undeveloped. To the south is RU rural, and then to the with agricultural use and some undeveloped land, and to the west is also RU, that rural zoning district with agriculture and undeveloped uses. Here's just a close-up image of that particular site, and as you can see, it's just a very small portion of the property that is a part of this request. And in the blue square is where the rezoning would occur, so it's just a 0.15 acre portion of the property, and then the blue dot in there is where the sign is roughly proposed to be. So they are requesting both a rezoning from M2 general industrial to PUD plan unit development. In addition, they're also requesting a preliminary and final PUD plan for a pylon sign. The pylon sign, that is, first that's a street view of looking from 5063 towards the off-ramp for Militia Drive. And so as you would be heading north into Jefferson City, that's a view of where you would see that sign. Here's an image of the sign itself, and then just a couple brief notes on the sign is that it's proposed to be roughly 800 square feet with a height of 55 feet being measured from the ground to the top of the sign. In the N2 General Industrial Zoning District under Chapter 3, the maximum height allowance for freestanding signs is 32 feet, and then the maximum square footage for freestanding signs is 200 square feet. And with that, those are the initial details. Well, it is going to be LED illuminated, and then there are going to be multi-tenant signs on there that are going to be underneath, and they're going to be they are going to be 3 feet by 8 feet for a total of 24 square feet. And those are the initial details of the request as it pertains. Oh, in addition, so the rezoning does have the review criteria associated with it, and the applicant has provided those responses in the case packet, and then staff has also provided brief notes in the staff report, also located in the case packet. So both the rezoning and the preliminary and PD plan are up for the commission's review, and then they will pass on a recommendation to the city council, which then the council will provide a decision. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I'll add a little bit to that. This is kind of an odd one. It's a small area rezoning with a PUD plan to accomplish a very specific purpose, and that is to provide for some signage opportunities within the Algoa industrial area. And specifically, as you can see at the top of that sign is the use associated with the last request, a gas station. And signage regulations are very built around on-premise versus off-premise signs, and so a business placing a sign on a property where that particular function is not occurring is something that's not supported by the Jefferson City sign code or most sign codes in most municipalities, and so this particular request would accommodate that. Some of the justification or thinking behind that is that although it's not on the specific property where the gas station would be, it's on property that is within the industrial area. Algoa developed over a period of many years, and so there's a number of different industrial tenants within the industrial park there. But there's nothing on paper that shows this is the boundaries of Algoa Industrial Park. It's there's a lot of uses out there. Well, this particular sign would allow for representation of some of those tenants within the industrial area, and then also give specific representation for the fueling station that was just heard. And so, as Courtney pointed out, the sign would be taller and larger than what is permitted within the normal signage regulations. And so anytime a PUD plan is calling out something that's out of out of the normal standards within the zoning code, we point that out within the process. And so the PUD process can accommodate such things, but, as I mentioned, we need to point it out. And so the sign would, of course, be located in a different location than where normal signage, where the sign code was built around things like Missouri Boulevard. This one is located, off of a major highway and a fair distance away from it. And so, some of the larger sign, the larger dimensions, might be justified, and, again, the size. Also, the number of potential tenant, locations, representing different entities on it, could be justification for a larger size as well. So I wanted to give some of that description, just to try to frame why this thing is before you and what the reason and different options that you have are. With that, happy to answer any questions before the consultant goes into presentation.
I have one question out of curiosity. Because it's on private property, does MoDOT have any say in signage? When it comes to
MoDOT
that?
does have signage regulations. I am not an expert on them. My understanding is that those have been looked into by the entities that are seeking this, and would defer to the consultant.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions for staff? Or Eric, in that matter? No? Okay. We will now hear from persons who would like to present this case. Please come forward to the microphone and give your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Paul Sampson with Central Missouri Professional Services, 2500 East McCarty Street. As Courtney explained, this proposal is pretty much directly linked to the previous case, where the proposed break time is going to be located is probably about 1/4 mile off of the interchange. And in order to be able to provide as much visibility and visibility of the sign and awareness to the public that the break time travel center is going to be located there, this advertising sign is really a critical piece to that proposal. The property that the sign is going to be located on is owned by the Jefferson City Area Chamber of Commerce. The chamber has been involved in the development of this industrial area for probably 50 to 60 years, going all the way back to Scholastic, Command Web, Alpla, and then most recently, Three Rivers Electrics have been bought the old Fabic building. So their history of this area goes back a long time. When break time first came to the proposal of putting a sign up, initially it was just, can we put a sign for break time up? And this kind of leads into your question about the MoDOT permitting. MoDOT does permit off-premise signs. They do not permit on-premise signs. So if this were strictly a break time sign, it would definitely be a off-premise sign and subject to those regulations. The chamber really wanted to take this a next step farther and use this as an opportunity to provide some wayfinding and some advertising for the existing industrial users in the area. It used to be that industries like to hide in the background and out of sight, out of mind, and if nobody knew where they were at, they were perfectly happy with that. In this day of age of A, transportation and logistics, and B, staff shortages and being able to find employees, having a presence and making people aware of where they're located at is really a benefit for them. So we've talked to several of the existing industrial tenants in the area, and they have all expressed a interest in having some advertising presence on this sign. So I'll leave it to Gary. He's potentially got some comments, but just taking this sign to the next level and using it as a advertisement for the entire industrial park, we think, is really important. And really it even goes just a step beyond that. The Militia Drive interchange is really the only grade separated access to the Algoa Industrial Park. The other access on the east side of the park is on North Shamrock Road next to the Highway Patrol and landfill. There's a lot of issues that have been caused by tractor trailer drivers, you put it in Google and they want to take you to North Shamrock Road, which, like I said, with that being an at-grade crossing, is not the most ideal location. So, like I said, just making the traveling public aware that that Militia Drive is really the preferred location of coming into the site. Courtney went through some of the details of the sign. Really the size and the height of the sign are really the two big things that are different than what the code would normally allow. And really the primary reason for that is visibility. On the handouts that I passed out before the meeting, in the second sheet is a kind of a couple of different perspective views of how the sign might look in relation to the surrounding area. As you're coming to Jeff City from the east going westbound, you're coming up upon the off-ramp and the sign would be just on your right, so it'll be very prominent and visible as you're coming in from the west side, or to the coming in from the east side. As you're coming in from the west going eastbound, that becomes a little bit more difficult due to where the off-ramp is located in relation to the interchange. So we wanted to make sure that we got the sign high enough and large enough to be able to see that coming towards Militia Drive from the west. So that's kind of the rationale behind the size of the sign. Again, with it being located, quite a distance off of the actual edge of the lanes, because of the width of the right-of-way, the sign folks have sized that in order to make it visible but not overpowering. Again, back to your permitting question. So we have had some at least preliminary conversations with MoDOT, and we believe that since this is a multi-tenant sign and really advertising the larger Algoa industrial area, MoDOT has indicated that they would most likely treat this as a on-premise sign because it's on the industrial park. So we're working through a few of the details on that, but that's kind of the direction that they are leading us at this point. In the plan, the overall size of the sign itself is 55 feet. The sign face itself is about 42 feet tall and 20 feet wide. So that leaves about 13 feet underneath the sign. The rendering shows at least a little bit of detail on what we expect this to look like. Since this is really the entrance to the city, we want to make it very architecturally pleasing. So we've actually got or been talking to a couple of different sign companies, one of which is the same company that designed and constructed the large sign out by Capitol Mall. So that's kind of the prototype that we're thinking of using at this location, having a little bit of stone on the sign and not just make it a massive signage, but making something that's architecturally pleasing and something that kind of highlights the entrance to the city on the far east side. I think that covers the details. Any questions?
Other than driving down there, you really don't know that much exists down there. So I think it's a good addition to that area in promoting what development land Jeff City has available. I think it's a good addition, and I know that sign is not expensive or not cheap. So,
right.
Do any commissioners have any questions for Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Paul, can you comment or give any information on ownership and future ownership of the sign?
So the property, as I said, is owned by the Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Birchfield and the Chamber are still negotiating some of the details of that, but it sounds like right now the direction that we are going is that the sign would be owned by the Chamber on Chamber property. Just, I think, long-term logistically and managing of that, I think it makes it a little bit cleaner deal. That way, as tenants come in or different industries come in, then the Chamber can kind of manage that aspect of it. So I think the construction will probably be a little bit of a combination of both, but I think long-term operations and maintenance will stay with the chamber.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, while Paul's at the stand, I believe that within the materials, there's an option to divide this off as a separate tract, in the future, to divide it from the larger tracts, which would, be developed in course with the industrial park and so on, and make sure the Planning and Zoning Commission is aware of that one small detail, which we would accomplish through the parcel division or lot split process, which is an administrative process at the staff level.
Yeah.
If that ever happened.
Right. So right now, the Chamber of Commerce, that's basically sitting on the lot line between two platted lots in the Partnership Business Park, or what do we call that? Partnership Business Park subdivision. So until such time that a development comes in on one of those two lots, the chamber will hang on to that. Once that development happens, there'll be a electric line that comes up to the sign. So we'll just kind of have to work around that depending on how those two tracks develop. But splitting it out as a separate parcel is a possibility in the future.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any questions for Paul before he goes? Okay,
Thank you
thanks.
very much.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this request? Please give your name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Gary Plummer. I'm the President and CEO of the Chamber. We're at 213 Adams in Jefferson City. I had the good fortune probably a little over 30 years ago to be at the Chamber when this property was first acquired, and we did so in order to accommodate an expansion of the Scholastic Distribution Center. And then we saw some positive synergy when Command Web came a couple of years later and located their printing facility there. But now, coming back to Jefferson City after about a 25-year absence, I'm just amazed at the development that has happened in this area. I don't think we ever envisioned the level of development and the significance that the Partnership Park has for our community. And when we were asked to come to the table and talk about how a sign of the magnitude that Paul already described, how it would be critical for the success of a travel center, we immediately said we want to be a part of the solution on this, and we've been working with the developer and with Jefferson City Regional Economic Partnership. We don't have a lot of experience in the sign business, but we're fortunate to be working with a developer who does. And so we're working through the details on how that would look. I will have to say that we strongly believe that this facility, the truck stop, if you will provide a very important service to the area with the number of employees that are in that area, both public and private sector. We think this is a need and a service that would be very beneficial to them. We think a partnership between the Chamber and the developer on a sign brings more professionalism to the site and becomes a better entrance to the community than we've been able to provide in the past. We also think that this sign will help identify Militia Drive as the preferred route for truck traffic, which is significant in that area. And I've been told that a lot of that truck traffic, just by habit, goes down Shamrock Road, which is not built to the standard that Militia Drive is. So this will be another benefit of this project. We actually, because we're supporting this project, we very much support the project you just approved for the development itself. And just want to go on the record as saying that we think this partnership is good for the community.
I'm assuming the chamber would maybe fill some of those spots with, until a lot is sold or another development comes in to draw attention to the park?
Yeah, we would be very willing to work with the developer to try to get some additional company signage on this structure. And it also probably has the room to add additional companies as well, because there's going to be roughly 50 undeveloped acres
Right.
in that.
And that's what I mean, would the
in that
chamber put
proximity.
up something on the sign that says, you know, we have development property?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, we
Okay,
would
yeah.
consider that.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Gary?
Thank you very much for being here this evening. I know Mr. Sampson touched on it, but I just wanted to ask you really quick, do you believe then that there is a clear understanding of who is going to maintain this sign?
We are discussing that right now with the developer, and when we get to the finish line on that, it'll be very clear through the agreement involving our land and their project, and we'll make sure that it's going to be properly maintained and protected for many, many years.
Perfect. Well, I like it. I just want to make sure with such a large sign that there is a plan for the maintenance of it. So thank you.
You bet.
Anyone else have any questions? No?
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor of this request? Okay, seeing none. Oh, sorry, sorry. Andy, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Andy Fechtel. I live at 5325 Westward Lane. I'm the current chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. Gary asked me to say a few things to provide a little flair to his presentation. Not that Paul's wasn't super riveting. There won't be any panels that say any local beer prices or anything like that. I thought that was one of the perks of being chamber chairman. Apparently, it's not. So I get to spend a Thursday night with you guys instead. But we just basically, you know, as a business community, we think this is an important, you know, show of faith by the city. That we're open for business, right? That we support our local industry, and that we make it known to people that, you know, there's sites available and that we support those sites as well. So very short comments from my end, but I can tell you the business community is very excited about this, and it's a good show of faith to that community as well from the city. So thank you all.
I appreciate it. Somebody have any questions for Andy? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor of this request? Oh. If you would, give your name and address for the record.
James Robinette, 1675 County Road, 390, Hope Summit, Missouri. The only reason I'm getting up at all is, beside working for Missouri Department of Economic Development for 32 years, simultaneously I also worked for Break Time for 20 years. And I worked at the Highway 70 and 63 break time. Many of you probably have know where that is. But the reason I'm talking at all is that when I worked there those 20 years, we had a vacant lot behind the building, and trucks would park back there. Now there's a Mark's Mobile Glass, but what often would come up is truckers would say, where can we park? What's the nearest location? And if they were going west, of course, there was Midway. If they were going east, well, you had Kingdom City. But going south, there was nowhere we could really tell them nearby. And so, to me, this project makes a lot of sense, especially with the addition of the truck parking. So, all I want to say is I'm glad to see what you all are doing here tonight, because from my own experience, it makes a lot of sense to accommodate truckers and the other. I also, I'm not a jack of all trades, but I'm also a volunteer employee at the Department of Corrections at the Jefferson City Correctional Center. So again, as you all brought up earlier, having a food vendor there and to serve the other state and private businesses there also makes a lot of sense. So again, I think this is a great project and thing that everyone's trying to do here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Robinette? Thank you. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor of the request? Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition of this request? Is there anyone else present who would like to just speak on this request? Seeing none, we will now close testimony. Courtney, could you please give us a staff report?
So again, there were two elements reviewed as part of this request, both the rezoning criteria and the preliminary PD plan. And it looked into things such as the changeover from, what would be the impacts of changing over from an M2 zoning district to a PUD. It looked at the plausibility and the impacts of the sign placed on that particular portion of the property. And would it be for both that property, what the impacts would be for that property, and then in the adjacent properties as well. Looked into things like the sign placement, where it's located, its dimensions, its design. All in all, though, staff does recommend approval because first, the sign would be compatible and would enhance the visibility of the industries in the area. Staff does recommend approval of the rezoning and the preliminary PD plan for the pylon sign. Up there is two form of motions, one for the rezoning from the M2 general industrial designation to the PUD plan unit development designation, and then a second motion for the preliminary PUD plan. Both of them would recommend approval to the City Council, which both would be heard for introduction on April 3rd, and then they would be up for a public vote on April 17th here in the Council Chambers at 6 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney. Do any commissioners have any questions for staff? Seeing none, would someone like to make the first motion?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to recommend approval of the rezoning of .15 acres from M2 General Industrial to PUD planned unit development.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Could we get a motion on, would someone like to make a second motion?
I'll make a motion on the second. Motion to recommend approval of the preliminary and final PUD plan for a front-standing multi-tenant pylon sign.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to case number P23008, 3420 North 10 Mile Drive. Courtney, could you please present the case?
This request is located again at the 3420 North 10 Mile Drive. It is zoned PUD. And what first, the zoning to the north is RA2, high density residential with single family residential use primarily up there. Then to the east is RA2, high density residential zoning with single family residential and apartment use up in that direction. To the south is C1, neighborhood commercial with single family residential use and then an assisted living facility. To the west is PUD with single family residential use and apartment use as well. This property, that's a closer up image of it with the property being highlighted in blue, is about 1/4 of an acre. And as shown on there, there's contour lines and then a gravity main line shown in neon green going about halfway through the property. What they're proposing is a preliminary PUD plan for a fourplex, a 2-story fourplex. And the preliminary PUD plan would be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission for recommendation and passed on to the City Council for a final vote. Just a few details to note on this request is that the building again will have 4 units and the square footage would be over 4,000 feet. The parking, so in the zoning code for this particular use, it does require 2 spaces per each unit, and they have put on there 8 parking spaces. And there are other details on there as well, but those are the main things to note as a part of this initially. I'll let the applicant go though further into detail about the proposal. So if there are any questions though, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney. Do any commissioners have any questions for Courtney? Do any commissioners have any questions for staff? Do engineering or okay, yeah. Okay. We will now hear from persons who would like to present this case. Please come forward to the microphone. You know the routine.
I know the routine. Paul Sampson, 2500 East McCarty Street. This proposal is being put forth by Shrimp Brothers LLC. Ryan Shrimp with Shrimp Construction is in the audience. He will be the contractor and developer on this project. Again, as Courtney said, basically we're just a single fourplex building, kind of in a townhouse style manner, upstairs, downstairs, each unit, and then 4 in a row side by side. Each unit's approximately 1,248 square feet. Brick fronts, vinyl siding on the other 3 sides. There's several other similar units in the vicinity. The 2 properties on either side directly adjacent are still single-family homes. This area has kind of been in a redevelopment mode over several years, and there's numerous other duplex, fourplex, and apartment buildings in the vicinity. Again, all the property to the east is owned RA2 multifamily. The property to the north is the Chapel Hill senior housing development. And then a lot of the property to the south is commercial and even industrial to the far west. So, like I said, although the directly adjacent properties are single families, what we're proposing here is really not out of the ordinary of what's in the neighborhood. The parking lot in front, again, would have 8 parking spaces, 2 spaces per unit. One of those spaces would be a handicap accessible space. We'd build a new drive approach onto North 10 Mile Drive, which the roadway itself is a little bit unique in that this property has never been subdivided, so the property actually still goes to the center line of the road. But in the development plan, we have left space and offset the buildings and parking lots an appropriate distance that if the city ever did come through and widen that road and actually acquire right-of-way, then they'd be able to do that. So we've left adequate space for that. The parking lot, we would have a couple of stormwater inlets to collect the stormwater off of that impervious area, and then we would route that to the back side of the building. The contour map Courtney had up previously, basically from North 10, everything runs off to the north. So we would have a small stormwater water quality basin basically between the units and where that sanitary sewer line is at. And then from there, we have overflow just continuing to the north once that water is detained and slowed down. Very similar to what's in the rest of the neighborhood. All these are very deep lots, so there'll be lots of green space behind. We're providing all the required landscaping as far as shade trees go for the parking lot. The lighting would just be residential type fixtures on front porches, so no real lighting impacts. Any questions? There's the matches the handout that I handed out previously, showing the green space and the proposed parking lots and buildings.
The notch out on the back, is that storage?
So initially, the architect had showed that since this is a fourplex building, it's going to require automatic fire sprinklers. So the architect had initially showed that being in the back. During the review process, the fire department did not want that in the back. They wanted easier access to it. So in the final development plans, they'll basically take that closet and bring it to the front side of the building and have a separate door in the front for the sprinkler and fire department access into that. So that detail hasn't been worked out yet, but that'll be included in the final plan.
Mr. Sampson,
Mhm.
how far
in feet from the street would the front of the building actually be?
So I can give you from the center line easier.
Okay, that works.
So basically, from the center of the road, we're going to be reserving a 30-foot wide future right-of-way. Then the parking lot itself is basically 44 feet in addition to that. And then there'll be a small porch and front sidewalk, which gets you another, about another 10 feet. So from the center of the line of the road, you're going to be 50 and 40, so that's 90. You're going to be getting pretty close to 100 feet off the center of the
And
road.
the parking, would that be where cars just pull straight in, or is it gonna be
It'll be straight in parking.
straight in?
Yep.
Okay. So we're not gonna get into any problem with,
No.
I'm just asking,
No.
asking.
No
I mean,
more-
as you know, I go to all the properties that we are gonna consider, and I went
Right.
out there today. Maybe it's just because I have a big car, but that street seems kind of narrow to me, and I just thought, backing out of the parking lot onto this, and I guess I was just there the right time of the day. That street was real busy.
Yeah, so the street itself is 22 feet wide, which is narrower than what we would normally, and I think it probably does have some small gravel shoulders on it. Normally on a street like that, we'd expect that to be somewhere in the, if it were a curb and gutter street, we'd expect that to be somewhere in the 28-foot
Yeah,
range.
it seemed narrow, but I
Right.
thought, well, maybe it's just me.
But the parking lot itself, so it'll have a, in addition to the, kind of like we've shown on there, the drive approach is basically right in the middle of the parking lot. So you're going to have, probably 3 parking spaces where you'll basically turn in off the street and just pull straight into a parking spot. The other ones, we've provided a full 24-foot wide drive aisle, which is what, standard through any parking lot in town. So, and then we've even provided a couple of bump outs on the far side for the last car that parks. So it's got a space to be able to back into before it pulls out. So,
Thank you.
you bet.
Anybody else have any questions for Paul? Okay, thank
So
you.
I might.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So these look to be 2-bedroom units, or is that correct?
Yeah, I think I included the floor plans in that set. So yeah, there'd be 2 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms upstairs.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, lower level is entryway, living, dining, combo, kitchen, and then upstairs is 2 bedrooms and laundry.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Sampson? No?
Thank you.
Thank you. Surprised somebody hasn't bought you a smaller car, Penny. Surprised somebody hasn't bought you a smaller car.
It's not gonna happen.
All right.
My rule is I have a bigger car and more insurance.
Well, there you go. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this request?
Hello, my name is Ryan Shrimp. I'm with Ryan Shrimp Construction and Shrimp Brothers, LLC, with offices at 1001 Madison Street. I'm here today just to speak on this project. As you all know, the city is facing a housing shortage, and we're hoping to help with that with some affordable housing. My family's been in the property management business for many years, so it will be managed by professionals. We hope to get rents like $9.95 a month with good tenants, seeking young professionals, younger families, even police officers or emergency personnel. Estimated cost of the building is $500,000. I think would be a good tax revenue for the city. Right now, the neighborhood is primarily mixed. I think it'll fit well. We'll make sure the building, like I say, fits the neighborhood. There's multiple apartments down the road, commercial across the street, and that's about it. Y'all have any questions?
I do not. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Shrimp? No? Thank you for coming. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor of this request? Okay. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition of this request? Is there anyone else who would just like to speak on this request? Seeing none, we will now close testimony. Courtney, staff report, please.
With review of the preliminary PUD plan, things that were looked into were the building composition and placement on the site. The unit per acre ratio is 5.5. Looked into the exterior building, which would be is proposed to be a brick veneer with siding with asphalt shingles for the roof. Looked into things such as the landscaping is proposed to have a coverage of 1,260 square feet. Looked into lighting. Lighting is proposed to be building mounted and then street lighting does also exist in the facility. Looked into parking. Again, that requirement of 2 parking spaces per unit. It meets that at 8 parking spaces being proposed, with 1 ADA compliant space being proposed. Looked into, so the traffic analysis study is not required as due to this use. It's the nature of the use. The area consists of a mixture of single-family and multifamily residential uses. Therefore, it does seem that the use would be compatible with the existing uses in the area. And it does appear to meet the standards of the zoning code. Staff does recommend approval of the preliminary PUD plan. And there is a form motion to recommend approval of the preliminary PUD plan for that fourplex with a condition of establishing the RA2 high-density residential zoning district as the underlying zoning district for purposes such as determining permitted uses, signage, and lighting regulations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney.
Yes.
Mr. Wade.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
As far as the engineering review of the project, as Paul had indicated, a new driveway would be proposed from North 10 Mile Drive. Stormwater is directed to the rear portion of the property and includes stormwater quality treatment. Sanitary sewer does traverse the property in behind the building and would be connected to the main. Sidewalks not required for the project as there's no curb that exists along the existing road frontage on North 10 Mile Drive. As far as utilities, there is a fire hydrant to the west of this property within the according distance per the city code, so that meets our standards. And then also there is a street light in and around the property as well. And the building would be proposed to be served by all necessary utilities. The preliminary PUD plan has been reviewed and is in good order, and engineering staff would recommend approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Does anybody have any, do any commissioners have any questions for staff or Shane? Seeing none. Seeing none, we will, excuse me. Seeing none, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move to recommend approval of the requested preliminary PUD plan for a single, 2-story, fourplex residential building with the following condition. Establish the RA2 high-density residential zoning district as the underlying zoning designation for the purpose of determining permitted uses, signage, and lighting.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Moving on to case P23009-901 Shotwood Hills Court. Courtney, would you like to present the case?
Yes. Okay. So this property is currently zoned PUD, and it consists actually of 2 lots. The northern lot is lot 98, and the lower lot, the southern lot, is lot 97. Both of them are part of the Shot Hill Woods Section 4 subdivision. And to the north is zoned PUD, with there being office space and undeveloped property. To the east is also PUD, with there being a newspaper printing facility there. To the south is also PUD, with there being vacant land, some single-family residential use there. And then to the east, or sorry, to the west is PUD planning unit development, with there being a restaurant over there. Here's a aerial of the site, with, again, there being 2 lots involved, with lot 98 being being a little over 1.5 acre, and then lot 97 being roughly 1.8 acres. Both of them are being proposed, or are a part of the preliminary PUD plan for office space with detached warehouse space. Here's a site plan with the proposal. And so just a couple of notes on it would be that, again, both will have that office space and warehouse space. Now on lot 97, the building will be a little over, it'll be nearly 22,000 square feet. And then on lot on 97, the square footage would be about 17,500 square feet. They do have on their notes about dumpster placement, landscaping, parking, and they're proposing to have on lot 98, they are proposing to have a total of 44 spaces, with 1 being ADA compliant, and then on lot 97 they're proposing to have 27 spaces with one space being ADA compliant. And there are other notes on there as well, such as a drainage system leading to a detention basin on the site on both lots. Those are the initial details of the requests. Are there any questions so far? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney. No questions for Courtney? Okay. I would like to just say that I've lived on the east side my entire life, and I'm super happy to see things being built over on the east side. I think it's sorely underused, so I'm glad to see this. Would someone like to make a motion?
We have a public
sorry.
hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me. Missed my place. Let's go for it. Come on, guys. We don't need anybody to speak. Sorry about that. We will now hear from persons who would like to present this case. Sorry, Paul, I was going to make it easy on you.
You know, after several long meetings, I wouldn't have been mad about
Right?
it. Paul Sampson, Central Missouri Professional Services, 2500 East McCarty Street. In this case, the property owner is Stringer Group LLC, which the back name behind that is Travis Rackers and his family with AirServe of Jefferson City. So the proposal on this case is their facility is currently located on East McCarty Street, actually just down the street from our office, about 2600 block, I'm guessing. But they're proposing to build a new office warehouse facility on the northern lot on this property. They purchased this from the Shot Hill Woods folks, I guess end of the year, with the PUD plan. Like I said, they're wanted to build AirServe on the northern lot. Really don't have any specific plans for the southern part of the lot, but since we're going through the PUD process, seems like that would be the most logical use. So while we're here, we're going to make a run at that, and if something changes down the road, we'll be back. But that's the initial thought. In the packet that I handed out, there are some floor plans of the building. So basically the front third of the building would be a 2-story office area, and then the back of it would be all enclosed warehouse and truck parking area and those type of uses. The building renderings, I think it'll be a pretty attractive building, have some stone, brick, and maybe drive it on the front in the office area, and then the back would be metal building. As far as the site plan itself goes, with the office use, basically we'll be providing 1 space per every 300 square feet, and then in the warehouse, I think the requirement's 1 per 5,000 square feet. The final building may not be as large as what's shown on there. Again, during these preliminary PUD plans, I always like to ask for more than what we really think we'll wind up doing, but that's kind of the maximum of what could be on that northern lot. We'll be providing landscaping for the parking lot to provide the shading requirement. There's existing stormwater that's all been put in as part of the Shot Hill Woods development, so we'll be designing some water quality features for both lots and tying that in with the existing stormwater drainage system. All the existing utilities are on the site, so utility extensions will be pretty minimal. Sanitary sewer basically splits the lots, so those lots will most likely always be separated by different uses of some kind. Dumpster enclosures will be in the parking lot. Kind of the thought behind this is most of the, particularly for the air serv building, all their truck traffic and large deliveries and things like that would use Shot Hill Woods Court on the cul-de-sac, coming in kind of the backside, and then office traffic and things like that would be coming in on Shot Hill Woods. This is not really a retail type facility, so the traffic volumes are pretty minimal and shouldn't have any impacts on any of the adjacent uses. Any questions? I guess maybe one more thing I would just mention. So can you go to that colored aerial maybe? So there is a strip of ground that kind of separates the residential area from all the commercial properties in the Shot Hill Woods area. That actually belongs to the Vetter family, and was kind of just a buffer. There's a little bit of a creek area in there. There's actually a large ConocoPhillips pipeline that runs through the middle of that as well. So that's kind of a permanent buffer that will be there. I think the Vetter family is in the process of trying to liquidate some of those things, and so those may be sold to some of the adjacent property owners. So that basically leaves in that permanent, between that and the pipeline, kind of leaves a permanent buffer between the development and any of the adjacent properties to the south.
Does anybody have any questions for Paul? Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Yep. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition of this request? Is there anyone present who would just like to speak on this request? Seeing none, we will now close testimony. Courtney with the staff report, please.
Again, with respect to the preliminary PUD plan, the aspects that were looked into were the building design and its placement on the sites. Looked into things such as landscaping, and they proposed to meet the 35% coverage requirement that is outlined in the code. They're also meeting the parking requirements, and looked into things such as signage and the other requirements such as overall design and setbacks. Now, the other things that are looked into will be signage and lighting. They're proposing to meet the lighting standards of the city code, and then other requirements such as they pertain to utility, stormwater, sidewalk, and fire safety also will be reviewed. The use itself should be compatible with the commercial uses in the area. Staff does recommend approval of the preliminary PUD plan. And do you have anything to follow up? I'll let engineering follow up with any comments they may have as well. Thank you, Ms. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as additional comments that we would have, Paul covered the majority of the infrastructure and site review on the engineering side of things. I would add, as far as sidewalk goes, there is an existing sidewalk that runs along Shot Hill Woods Drive that is currently in place. Shot Hill Woods Court would not be required to add sidewalk to it per our sidewalk map. And As far as the utilities go, the streetlights and fire hydrants are existing in the area. Review status goes, the preliminary PUD plan has been reviewed and is in good order, and engineering staff would recommend approval. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Shane. Any questions for Shane or staff? Go ahead.
Shane, is there any concerns about the width of Shot Hill Woods Court? I know sometimes there in the mornings and different times you can see people parking on both sides that are being patrons of Oscars there. So just that kind of just concern of parking along that while also trying to get delivery trucks turning into that back lot is kind of one thing.
Right. At this point, it's been designed in accordance with basically our subdivision code and requirements as far as widths go. So, at this point, I don't envision that there would be any issues. If I think, Paul, you'd indicated that was truck traffic that would come back that way. So hopefully that'd be a minor use for the site in terms of in and out for just, the public would be using the main entrance off of Shot Hill Woods Drive.
Well, I think, and I totally get what you're saying, nothing's there, so people park everywhere. I'm suspecting that if it becomes an issue, and this goes back kind of to the day whenever we didn't really deal with parking when we did subdivisions. So I would say that if it does become an issue, somebody would most likely be coming to the transportation committee to try to get some no parking put up in there. So.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion?
Move to recommend approval of the requested preliminary PUD plan with the following condition. Establish the C2 General Commercial Zoning District as the underlying zoning designation for the purpose of determining permitted uses, lighting, and signage.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, I guess we are moving on to new business. Do we want to talk about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that'll proceed on to the city council with the positive recommendation with the public hearing on April 17th, 6 p.m. this room. Okay, so into other business on the agenda. First, staff updates on prior cases. And so I think I have 4 cases to report on. The first, 110 Cedar City Drive. There's a retail farm to market store put forward by the Fisher family. Rezoning to PUD and a PUD plan, and that was approved at the city council level. Second, the 2200 block of St. Mary's Boulevard. That's a rezoning that was forwarded on to the city council along with a preliminary subdivision plat. And that was approved at the city council level for that rezoning. So the next step for that development would be a final subdivision plat to plat what we would anticipate to be at least a 2-section subdivision, so probably about half of it. The third case I'll report on is 311 Bolivar Street. That was the 3-story coffee amended PUD plan to reorient the parking adjacent to the alley. And so they did, the city council level, it was continued for one meeting, and there were some discussions that took place and an amended plan put forward at the city council level, which was approved. So it's a modified version of the plan. So I have that up on the screen. It switches the number of parking spaces along the alley from the proposed 8 to 6 spaces, you can see. And then a signage plan consisting of sign for tenant and employee parking only, and a number of fire lane signs along with painting both sides of the alley red for fire lane. And so, of course, that was done due to very specific concerns by the Jefferson City Fire Department, as that is the primary access to the back of Fire Station 1. So that, again, was approved in its modified version at the last council meeting. And then also the TC3C subdivision. This is a subdivision on Roland and Marshall Streets, still sitting at the city council level. And so it was placed on the informal calendar. That's the method the city council uses to table a matter. And so it was placed on the informal calendar for one meeting and then left there for another meeting. And so is scheduled to be on their agenda at their next meeting. And so that particular case has received a significant amount of public correspondence and public comment at the city council level, including a very large petition by the neighborhood regarding that. And there's also been a neighborhood meeting by the applicant. So the applicant has, the developer has met with the neighborhood, and presentation in front of the city council, presentation to going beyond the subdivision plat, the line drawing that is presented, and with the application into the different styles of housing, answering a lot of different questions that have been the source of concerns by the surrounding neighborhood. And so that is still sitting at the city council level, and some of the comments have been very oriented toward the lack of any kind of notification process for subdivision plats. The surrounding neighborhood has been very concerned about that. And so that is the next item, as you can see on under other business, is and we placed it there as a discussion topic for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then also an opportunity for some public comment. And so, as you're aware, there is no notification process for subdivision plats, either by city code or state law. And subdivision plats that come through this body vary in their in their size. Some subdivision plats are only for a couple lots. Some are for very large residential subdivisions. Some are commercial in nature. Some are single family or multifamily in nature. So there's a lot of variety there. And sometimes the platting process takes multiple steps with a preliminary plat and then follow-up final subdivision plats of each individual section as the subdivision is completed in phases. But there is no notification process or procedure for that. Part of that, I believe, is rooted in that subdivision plats are really judged on objective standards. So if a subdivision is meeting the requirements of the city code and the subdivision code, then that's the justification for their approval. And to deny a plat could have a legal challenge against it where that plat is meeting all those requirements, as opposed to many other items that are presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission, such as the series of PUD plans you saw this evening, where individual PUD developments, property that's zoned PUD, it triggers a notification process for the surrounding neighborhood. And so everyone gets a notice and an opportunity to comment on the specifics of that development plan. Or a rezoning process, as the first item that is on the agenda that is withdrawn. A large number of people are here to give comment about a particular rezoning. Again, a lot of the standards, as Courtney goes down the staff reports and the required findings, for those types of matters, are very subjective in nature, as opposed to the more objective standards of a subdivision plat. But there is room to discuss. We do not have any kind of formal proposal or anything like that in this regard. In fact, we would recommend that any course we're kind of put toward is would first be a certain level of research to see what possibilities are out there and what other communities do. We also have a pending change of leadership coming up with a new department director, and some experience and the ability to weigh in on these matters. But things like this have to start somewhere, And so we've placed this on the agenda. And Mr. Chair, you can pursue this how you wish. I think there's a number of people in attendance that would like to comment, and also room for the Planning and Zoning Commissioners to comment. So.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I guess the question would be, do any commissioners have any thoughts on that as far as notification for plat, for, how do you say it again? Not reorganizing, but redevelop,
The subdivision
Replan.
plat notification process is the
Right.
title on the agenda. So, yeah.
I agree. And currently it's for other notifications or for other like PUD projects, it's 185 feet, correct? And that's to property line?
Correct. 185 feet is measured, and we jump over the right-of-way before measuring. So, yeah.
Got it. But that is from property line to property line. So if somebody's house set way back, it's wherever the property line is, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. If nobody has any comments, I guess if anybody here in attendance would like to comment on that.
Eric, how many residents would have been notified had we applied the standard that we apply to other items if we'd applied it to this? Do we know that?
I like specifically for that particular subdivision case, I don't have that number. 185 feet, in a single-family residential area will usually jump out at 2 or 3 houses. And it's about kind of the lot size, sometimes a little bit more. Other subdivisions, especially large commercial ones, could trigger very large numbers of notifications. It just kind of depends on the property and such.
Go ahead, Shannon.
I really just wanted to comment and say that typically I support notification to folks unless somebody can make a case that it's too cumbersome or the process wouldn't work. But I typically think that the folks need to be notified. That's just my position.
Go ahead, Shane.
Eric, in regard to the subdivision requirements, is a lot of the subdivision requirements that the city has based upon the state regulations in terms of the requirements that are within our code?
I mean, yeah, the subdivision code, I think, is, well, I'm not sure if I can answer that question, Shane. So, I mean, yes, compliance with state law, of course, is key, and that's why we have Dustin here. And so, but outside of that, I don't know what possibilities there might be.
Eric, the citizens that had concerns about what was happening, since there wasn't a notification process, did they learn about it through, like, the newspaper, or do we know how that information got disseminated?
So I think a lot of the, for that particular case, was activity taking place on the property, survey markers and such. But in the past, I think, occasionally it comes up as surrounding property owners either hear through the media or through agenda postings of things taking place within near their their property. So I mean, the meetings are all open to the public, and there's just no notification process to specifically notify the surrounding property owners. So.
But in this case, I believe citizens present can speak to that, how they found out about it.
So if we did enact a notification process specific to this to this type of situation, it wouldn't be in conflict with any state statute?
If I might. If you're looking to enact some kind of notification process for this, you will probably need to approach the city council and suggest a code amendment for that. If there's no code requirement, they've done everything they're required to do at this point.
Thank you.
Eric, have we had situations similar to this one in the past that you have knowledge of, like planning and zoning and approving these subdivision plats, and then surrounding community and citizens coming and voicing their concerns after that?
So the one that comes up most in my mind was a very large commercial development on property that was zoned commercial, and so it's not. I mean, it's a kind of different category from this, but still somewhat similar in that the particular development being pursued was the property is properly zoned. And it was the subdivision platting process that was being accomplished. And so yeah, it has come up in the past. At the same time, it's a fairly large number of subdivision plats that come through this body, and so yes, there's a lot that don't necessarily trigger a whole lot of interest, but then occasionally there is something out there that does.
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Follow-up question for council. So if there's nothing currently out there and the city council proposes an ordinance, could they propose whatever type of notification that they deem would be appropriate? I mean, it wouldn't necessarily, I guess my question would be, you wouldn't necessarily have to go from house to house or publish in the paper. Could you create a place on your city website that people can go to be able to review these types of things? I mean, my question is, can you use any variety of notification
So that would
sources?
that would depend greatly. As a charter city, we have a lot of leeway in what we can essentially do with our own code, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that would depend greatly on what the state has already decided is necessary, what statutes they've already passed, and I would have to do research to find that answer for you, further than just to say, if the state hasn't legislated that already and put some kind of limitations or requirements on it, then we would be pretty free to do what we thought was necessary.
Okay, thank you.
The Hazelton subdivision, that was a rezoning, that was not replatting, correct?
Correct. That particular subdivision included a zoning element, and so there was notification in the area.
Does anybody else have any comments to make? I would have to agree with Emily. I think doing research, having staff do research on it, find out what other communities do. Also with the pending leadership coming in, the new director, right? That we allow them to maybe look into it and present to us. That's kind of up to us if we want to do that.
Mr. Chair, we are pretty deep in discussion, but I think there's a number of people that would
Well, I
like
did
an
say,
opportunity
I asked
to
if they
comment.
wanted to speak on it, but nobody had said anything.
Oh.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll speak louder. Would anybody in the audience like to speak upon this? I figured that's why.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Patsy Johnson. I'm a resident of 908 Lafayette Street, and I'm happy to be here this evening. As far as changing the notification code, we in the area have had quite a bit of problems with not being notified of things in the area. And each time it's a shock. And we're constantly having to rush, try to organize, come and do what we need to do to try to gather information, and come to city council, come wherever we need to do to find out what's happening in our own backyard. It's difficult. When people are looking at possibly tearing up a big hillside of concrete, and a big steep hill and all these type of things, that affects the health of the people in our neighborhood. So notification when people are taxpayers, longtime residents, you all, your neighborhood, you wouldn't want something right across your line that is affecting you that you have no idea, no notification of. You know, that's all we're asking as residents, just to be able to know what could affect us, what could harm our property possibly, you know, what's gonna be in our neighborhood, you know, what's gonna be across our street. So as residents, we wanna be treated just as well as a developer that can move in from anywhere, come and develop. We need developers, but we also know that our citizens need to be treated properly. All of us. All of us want due respect. And we want to all be good neighbors to each other. And that's where it starts, you know? So that's all we're asking. That's all. It's just notification, and notification is not gonna legally get anybody in trouble. You know, it shows a good outreach from our representatives of our city and our citizens that are representing us, saying, look, we want to let you know that this is happening in your neighborhood. That's it, in the nutshell. And I appreciate your time, each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Johnson? That's okay.
I didn't want to take up too much, but if you have any questions, I'm available for
Well,
it.
I'm curious as to what your concern, what you're addressing here. What you didn't get notified about that you would like to have been notified about.
We wanted to be notified about a subdivision.
Okay.
That is gonna come in our neighborhood. Is actually right across from my backyard.
Okay.
And it happens to be on a big steep hillside that is full of rock. It's a dangerous situation. I see it as an experiment. It hasn't been developed or worked on in 60 years. That's my opinion.
Okay, and
You
so
know.
to answer, and
But-
the council person asked, how did you become aware of it?
We became aware of it because on a Friday, flags came up, and it alarmed everybody. By Monday, it was set to be approved. We didn't have an opportunity to, we didn't have any idea. And I'm talking about, this is a big, steep hillside, totally full of rock. I mean, steep to where the kids in the neighborhood use it to slide on. I mean, it's a sled, it's a ski slope. And it's full of rock. It's so full of rock, so much that you can't even, there's so many spots that it comes out the grass. And I hope you all would take a time to go look at it, because it's real. It's scary. And so to us, it's alarming when something has been sitting there, and to the possibility of explosion being used or whatever. Even if they're chipping away, we know it's going to affect our health. Us walking our dogs, you know, going out, people with asthma, and we've had problems in the past. And that's the big thing. When the link came up, there's been cracks in foundations in our area. When JC, we're enclosed between Lincoln University, JC, and Thorpe Gordon, all within blocks. And so we're totally enclosed, you know, we've got a lot of things. It's just like overcrowded. If you live there, you know it. We don't even have parking. We're all paid for parking at our own homes. Residential parking everywhere. It's interesting. And even the people that have to come through just to go to Jackson Street, everybody cares, because it can be a very polluted area. Don't talk about snow right up in that real clustered area, because it's high traffic. The highway study will show it's very high traffic. So we're very protective of that area. We're good stewards of that area. And so we're close knit. And so when we see something come up like that, when we've had that experience to where we've had trouble with that before. It's alarming to us. And then once we do the research and we find out we've got till Monday, to try to go to city council before it's approved, it's like we don't have any say so. And as residents and taxpayers that have lived here in our city, we go to restaurants, we frequent the store. Collectively, we spend big money. We invest here. And other people can come and just all of a sudden, it's up to them, and then we're told that they don't have to give notification. It's up to them to reach out to us. And then it's how they reach out to us. They reach out to us in such a way that they tell us we don't matter, basically, or they can. They don't have to do anything. It's not required. Sometimes when you get an opportunity, maybe we ought to make it required. Maybe we ought to be citizen friendly. We're all citizens. We all pay taxes. We can make it happen. Too many people talk about what can't happen or what doesn't happen. Let's make it happen. This can happen. It's not against the law.
I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
If it was not being, the lots were not split and they were to build on those lots as is, would that be as big a concern for you? Because technically they wouldn't have to notify you, but in this case, well, they don't have to notify you now, but if it were to change and there was a notification for replatting, would it be as much a concern if they built, just on those individual lots now?
It would still be a concern.
Right.
We would still like notification that something's going to happen in our neighborhood, because if something, like if what goes up comes down, it'll be in my backyard if there's an accident, if this, that, and we would like notification. Now, I'm
But I'm
make
guessing
sure I understand
the
your
amount of
question. I
the
think
amount of homes that he's wanting to build
yes
is
yes.
mainly your concern.
Yes.
Because as of right now,
because
if
it's
you
more
wanted to,
construction, it's more digging, it's more chance for danger.
Right.
For us. That's what I see. It's more chance for accidents and this, that, and other. Yeah, I don't know what, I see it as an experiment because it hasn't been touched. I don't know what's going to happen. We know there's been cracks in foundation in other places. We don't want someone else to come and build, gentrification our area, and damage our property. Like I said, there's already damage in our neighborhood because of other buildings. So this is very close, and it's a very tight, steep hillside. I just hope you all take a time to go look. Whether you all have already passed this or not, please go look. Because then look at it and say, would I want this across my street? Would I want it up above me? Would I want it behind my house? Because it's the reason that nobody's done anything to it for 60 years. It's somebody taking a chance. And I don't understand it, but, and I'm not against housing. I'm not against even something else in my neighborhood as long as it's reasonable. I want to be able to see a sidewalk, like at the top of Marshall. I want to be able to see a sidewalk there. But I don't want to see where, I looked up the top of the hill, the trash can man was going around in the truck. He couldn't even hardly turn around well. He has to back up and move. I can't imagine 7 houses up there. That's ridiculous. But anyway, that's not about me. But the bottom line is that's somebody else is approving all this. And somebody else is going to be responsible. But if it damages the existing people's homes that they've paid for, they've worked hard for, they lived in, we have to see. It's going to be a wait and see. Because the houses, what we keep being told changes every week. We've been told so many conflicting things that it's scary to us. It is.
As in conflicting things on the number of houses?
Oh, from how many garages, shown pictures of different houses, been told so many, everything has been conflicting. Even some of the people have been told they can't even ask another question. I'm not talking to you. So this has just been unreal, and I've just never seen anything like it. I felt my neighbors have been disrespected. I felt disrespected. This whole process has been something that I wouldn't wish on anyone, and I don't feel like it's something that's not right about it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody
I have
keeps
a
saying
question.
it, and it's true.
What would have been a reasonable notification for you, time frame?
60 days. 60 days, because people are in and out, you know, they might be taking a trip. It's a relaxing time, and you don't feel like shocked. You know, 60 days is like sitting there, you know, you just like you see notifications out. So it puts you at ease. You know, but everything about this has just been traumatizing, honestly.
Well,
I have a question.
Sure.
Did the developer, Mr. Joseph, have you all in your neighborhood been able to have a face-to-face with him? I mean, this is kind of specific, more, it really doesn't affect the process, but I'm just curious, has he refused to talk to you, or?
No, after city council suggested that he reach out to us, he did that. He made posters. He had them delivered to a certain area of neighbors, not all of them that it would affect, but he did, in good faith, reach out, send these, and invite us over to the link, to the president's suite up there. I've been to plenty of meetings up there, but anyway, but it wasn't welcoming. There were refreshments that never got open. We started off in the front. I mean, he started off talking in the front, and then him and his contractor broke up and went table to table and quit talking after a couple of, you know, people were asking questions, and they broke up, so you couldn't hear what was being said. They were going from table to table, talking individually, and I had asked, could he please go back up front, because we couldn't hear, because it was all this buzzing going on. It was kind of chaotic. You know, it didn't provide information for everybody at once so we could clearly hear. And when that happened, he turned around, looked at me, and then continued doing what he was doing and kept the noise going. Yeah, I mean, you know, kept the individual groups. But when you're doing that, nobody else can hear what's going on. So that's the way he did it. And then when he made it to my table, I had a list of questions that were from myself and then some of my neighbors that had to go to a funeral because of a longtime neighbor that had died but was moved away, and the funeral was in St. Louis. So they couldn't make it, so they asked me to ask some questions. And he said that he was going to be there to answer questions. And so I asked him when he got to my table, my husband was there, and then a guy from up at the top of the hill, and I asked him, I said, I asked Mr. Joseph, would it be okay if I recorded him while I read the questions and he answered, so I could make sure that my neighbors got the accurate information? He got upset. He said, absolutely not. And he turned around to everybody and he said, I will not agree to be recorded. He said, I don't want anybody recording me in here. I agreed to have this, and I was willing to have you in here, but absolutely not. I won't be recorded on anything. And a couple of other things. You go to another table, you talk to somebody, and they say, well, that's not what he told me. That's conflicting information, and that was the problem, and it leads to mistrust. It's hard to, everything about this whole situation has been very mistrustful.
Ms. Johnson, right?
Yes.
Did you have good turnout at that meeting?
Yeah, we had about 25 people or so. That wasn't bad, and I don't know what streets he gave you know, what he gave out, but 25 is not bad, you know, turnout but I'm thinking he probably gave Roland, well, I can't say so, but I imagine it's Marshall, Roland, if the main vicinity. I don't think he went to parts of Jackson or much on Lafayette. He probably went to the front part of Lafayette, which it would be behind their houses. And then my area, which I'm right on the corner of Lafayette and Roland. So he probably went to that little strip where there's 3 houses.
And
So,
did you speak at city council too, when this matter
I
came up?
did.
Did you have pretty good turnout from the neighborhood at the city council meeting too?
we had a very large petition, and we probably had about, probably 9 people that showed out, or 10 or 12.
Do you think you would have had more if there was some advance notice?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And,
I don't want to cut you off at all.
Sure,
I want you
that's
to
okay.
continue
I
to
have
talk.
been-
But,
Okay.
you know, as far as this meeting goes, we really want to kind of focus on what you think would be reasonable as far as notification. I'm sure you could talk about this all day because
Well,
this is,
well,
yeah, no,
I
and
just
and
was
it's
trying to
totally,
answer the
no,
question.
and
I'm
you're
sorry.
totally fine. And we appreciate the input, but you think that as far as notification goes, you know, that it would be a 60-day notice?
Yeah.
You know, as far as, you know, is there any, as far as vicinity goes, what are you thinking as far as?
Well, just something stuck out on the property would be nice.
Okay.
Or, you know, like in that block or something, just sort of like you do with the other notifications.
Sure.
Just a public notification out in the area to where people can look at it. Now, if they don't care, you know, that's one thing, but at least people can't say that they weren't notified or they didn't see anything out there.
Eric, what's the
And
timeline
as
now?
well as the, you know, on a website or something.
Yeah. Believe
That's
it's-
what I would suggest.
Penny asked what the timeline was now. I think is it 30 days?
So standard public notification procedures for rezoning cases, PUD cases and such, have 3 components. One is a legal notice. I believe it's a 15-day notice in the newspaper. Honestly, very rarely read, but it is in there. And the second is a property sign posting, and it's hard to miss those signs. And then the third is a mailed notice to property owners within 185 feet. That's the owners, not residents. So it's if it's a tenant occupied situation, they don't get a notice.
What's the time frame for the sign and the letter?
About 2 weeks. So.
And that
I appreciate your 60-day thought, but I think that has to be mitigated with the fact that builders have sometimes borrowed money to buy property and to launch their building. And so, you know, I think we have to think about it from their side too. That's why I ask about that. The other question I was just curious about, and this really doesn't impact this specifically, but the person that was the previous owner of that property, was that someone in that area, or was that an absent owner?
There were 2 previous owners. Well, Habitat sold the property because they had purchased it for a while, and you talking about the ones that purchased it
That Mr. Joseph has
that
purchased.
Mr. Joseph got it from. He purchased it from the bottom 2 lots from a owner that was raised in the area, but she moved away
Is an absent.
after she grew up, so she was absent. The other one actually lived at the top of the hill, but then he moved away. So he had been up there a long time, you know, him and his wife, and they moved away. So both of them were absent. So they didn't have any investment in the neighborhood at all.
And just for my own curiosity, do you see any benefit to this subdivision? Or do
Absolutely not.
you see
It's not
none?
gonna fit the neighborhood.
You don't think it'll have a positive effect on the comps in the neighborhood?
On the what?
On the comps? the value of your home possibly increasing because of the
Yeah,
building?
yeah, no, it will, but it won't outweigh the negative. No, it will overprice our houses and it will bring it up some, but the bottom line, we will pay more. And in the long run, we still won't be able to balance even selling and then by purchasing something else adequately once more and more gets chipped away. It's gentrification for us. Thank you.
Yeah,
Pretty
if
good.
that's, yeah, thank
Okay.
you, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead, come up. State your name and address, please.
My name is Jocelyn King. I live at 901 Roland Court here in Jefferson City. Patsy covered things very well. I can say one surprise for this for me. Oh, by the way, it's been a while. I've lived here since I was a senior in high school. And that lot has been vacant the whole time, and it's close to 50 years. And now this development is coming up. Great, Jefferson City needs housing. Okay, that is not an argument. Okay, but first of all, no, we didn't know anything about it. All right. Except we saw the markings, and then all of a sudden there's a meeting. And I can remember it was this one building down on Lafayette Street across from Lincoln University. Just that one property was going to be rezoned. And there was a sign up there to come to the hearing, okay? So that is all I would hope to see. But this wasn't a rezoning, so I wasn't going to see it. But it is going to drastically change the neighborhood. First of all, up at the top on the Marshall Street Court, 7 houses is way too many. Now, all I'm saying is if there was a hearing, we would have brought this up earlier so it could be looked at. I live down the hill on Roland Court, which is actually in the round a bigger court. And there are only 4 houses there. And I understand this plat up there was originally designed back in the 60s for 4 units. And like Patsy said, you know, it's so small around, the garbage truck can hardly get up in there and turn around. Okay, and I'm just saying, I'm not saying don't build, but different kind of planning, forethought, etc. needs to be involved here. In addition to that, okay, the 7 units up there, 3 units down on Roland Street. And I understand this developer has bought another lot up across from J.C. High School on Franklin Street. And that's another thing, too. The Marshall property in Franklin Street, that's very close to J.C. High School. And you should see what we go through now with traffic after school. Okay? So I can't see anyone. I know if I was moving to Jefferson City for the first time and I went up to review that possibly property to move in, but it was right at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I would say, no way. No way. It's crazy. And it even gets crazy. It comes down on Roland Street where I am. I was going home the other day, and here are 6 school buses lined up waiting to turn left. What are the school buses doing on Roland Street? But everybody has a free-for-all with us anyway as far as traffic and all like that. And that's been going on for quite some time. But I'm just saying, you talk about 7 new houses, 3 new houses here, then another one here, then another one here. We knew nothing about it. Just because this area is bordered by homes, other than you have the high school up at the top of the hill, but the other side is residential. Okay, now we talk about, you know, the neighborly thing to do. The other thing I understand is once the council does approve this, the builder is going to immediately lay down the foundations of each unit. So what if somebody wants to buy a double lot or something like that? That just won't happen. The homes will be for between $250,000 and $300,000. In that part of town, it's not exactly affordable housing. It is additional housing, but not necessarily affordable. And that's why she was speaking of this could affect our taxes and everything. But also quality of life. You know, the crowding, the cramming, you know, all the extra business going on. And myself, you see, I'm a little scratchy tonight. I have severe asthma. A few other of my neighbors do. The homes will be built as the units are sold. It won't be like a subdivision where they come in and build all the homes at once. So we may be going through the construction pollution for about 6 months, a year, who knows? I don't know how long it's going to take to sell all those lots and then build, okay? So these are the kinds of things we would want to bring up earlier to the Zoning and Planning Commission and others involved, rather than finding out on the tail end.
So what do you think as far as notification?
At minimum, the sign, you know, come to the hearing.
So I understand what you're saying there. But if Franklin, if there was no lots on Franklin or Roland, there, it would be hard to, the signs on Marshall would be not visible if you drove by it, is what I'm saying, right? Because they're always located on the property that is being rezoned, or, you know, things like that. So what I'm saying is, if you didn't live on Marshall and that was the only lots that were being rezoned, if this was the case, or replatted, that sign would not be seen by very many people.
I
other than
do
that.
agree with you.
Right.
I do agree.
But I
with
do
you
agree.
in that.
I know what you're saying. You would like just a sign in general.
Yes.
So I believe, Mr. Barron, I believe a sign would have been put on Roland as well as Marshall. Is that correct?
Because, well, that is a part, Roland is a part of the subdivision.
Right. But I'm just saying, if it wasn't, if there was not a lot, if this development didn't have that frontage on that street, it would only be to that general area. So the sign is not always going to be visible to, you know, a bunch of traffic, is what I'm saying. But I agree, I understand what you're saying.
Well, the plat markings aren't going to all be visible to everyone either. But for those of us who saw it, we spread the word. I mean, that's the best I can say on that. But yes, I mean, this is a community that has been taxpayers here in the community for a long time. And we're just talking about the neighborhood's going to change. What's the neighborly thing to do? You know, I mean, we just want that respect. That's all we're asking. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, just to answer that question,
Sure.
when we place the zoning public hearing signs, we strive to place them so that they're visible from all roads. So corner lots are easy; you put them on the corner. You know, sometimes there's properties with multiple frontages that gets a little more complicated, and sometimes results in two signs. For very large area rezoning, such like as an entire neighborhood, which has occurred, we kind of switch gears and put them at prominent locations within the neighborhood, and so that's our general philosophy.
Yes, sir.
James Robinette again, only this time I'm speaking on behalf of the NAACP at the request of the residents. First, I'll just give a brief history of our involvement with the residents. One, and I spoke about this at the city council meeting, is that we first became involved with the residents at their request when the school board was trying to purchase the properties up on Marshall Street and Franklin Street, when they came up with their first plan to build a campus for Jeff City High. And again, the residents found out afterwards, and they came and asked us for our help. We worked with them. The neighborhood boundaries we've always worked with is up Lafayette from Dunklin all the way up to Franklin, then Franklin to Jackson, Jackson to Roland, and down Roland. And the residents are very proud of their neighborhood, as they've expressed tonight. And so that's one reason why they want notice. We did work with them. The board came up with a new plan, and as I said on Monday night, thank God the voters voted for a second high school instead of going with that original campus plan. prior to that, the residents of, I call it the Roland Street neighborhood, someone had tried to build habitat houses on Roland on 2 of the vacant lots that Mr. Joseph is currently purchased to build his houses on. And again, the residents found out after the fact and had to oppose it and say these homes, they weren't opposed to affordable housing and habitat housing, but saying this will impact the market value of our homes. And I'll put on one of my other hats. Before I used to be a member of the Evening Rotary, so I was involved in helping with the construction of the Rotary Habitat House up on Jackson last year. So those houses truly fit the character of Jackson Street, and I greatly commend the city and Habitat for working to bring those affordable housings into the neighborhood. But my point is that each time, and this time with Mr. Joseph's project, yes, no notification was required, so of course the residents found out, as Patsy said, right before the city council meeting, and so they had to rush, get them neighborhood residents together and make their concerns known at the past 2 city council meetings. And I'll put on my other hat from being at economic development when I work with the community development block grant program. We did a neighborhood rehab project years ago. I'm going back decades when Melva Fast worked for the city. That was years ago, but I had previously worked with Melva when she was with the Planning Commission up in North West Missouri, and then I also work with her here. But again, what the feds require, and we were a HUD-funded agency by the state. HUD gave us the money, the Department of Economic Development. But on any of our projects, getting to the point of notification, we can only award projects to city and counties by law. And when cities and counties accept our money, one of the requirements of accepting our money is to give the public a notification of the project. And we require at least a newspaper notice 7 days in advance of the hearing. But the city or county can do other measures in addition to that required newspaper notice to get the word out, but they have to hold a public hearing so that they can receive public comment on the proposed project. And so that's part of the application process. That's not after we've awarded the money to a city or county. So that process really helps to get the affected public involved, whether it's a neighborhood rehab project like we did. Help refresh my memory. What's the name of the steakhouse on High Street east of Lafayette? Yes, we did a project north of High Street in an area right over near that. And not only the other part of the project is we rehabbed an apartment upstairs in the Donahue's restaurant to create affordable rental property for any of their employees who would work there for the restaurant. But again, anything we did, and I'll give one more example and then shut up in the interest of the time. You've been here a long time. I also work with DED, Department of Economic Development. We also did the project over here at MSP. We did a joint project with the Office of Administration where we demolished the projects behind the buildings behind the wall at MSP to help clear most of them before they were turned over by the state to the city. And so again, anything we do, even the state, since it was our money, we're going to hold a public hearing and meet our public notification requirements, regulations, if you will, guidelines, if you will, but they're required by any entity, whether us, the counties we award money to, or the cities we award money to. So it's just, in my view, I know I've been geared that way from working 32 years for the state, but almost 32 years, about 2 months short. But it was important to us to give the public notice in any community. I don't care if I was working in the Boot Heel or working with Jeff City. I did projects in St. Louis and Kansas City. We did new housing construction projects that I worked on in Cameron, Missouri, when they needed affordable housing after the Department of Corrections built 2 prisons up there. And so, again, people need to know how these projects are going to impact where they live. I mean, just the project you mentioned tonight, you brought up the issue of parking by Oscar's Restaurant and how the new project may impact what goes on there. And so all the citizens are saying, as you aptly put, Miss, that we would like the respect of knowing what's coming out of, and you have a great staff, what's coming out of City Hall, you know, what's coming before the planning, your commission as well as their office, so they can know in some way contribute constructively to what's going on. So I'll shut up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Robinette? No? I will tell you, I do respect the fact that you guys take care of your property. It's good to see homeowners, you know, take pride in their property. So I do definitely respect that. I live in an area where my home does back up to some habitat housing, and a lot of those owners do not take care of their property. So I would love to have you guys as neighbors, is what I'm saying. And I think that with everything that you all have mentioned tonight, oh, do you have something to say too? Yeah, come on up.
Thank you. I'm not going to belabor this. We've heard quite a bit about the situation. I want to know, I should say we would like to know, just what is your responsibilities? How you come about making your decisions, and what information do you gather to support them?
So, I believe tonight has been brought to our attention because of this situation that you all are dealing with, and it's been brought to our attention by staff to have a conversation about it. As of right now, there are no responsibilities to give anybody notice on replatting issues. Mm-hmm. Correct? Right? No notification. So we're having an open conversation to basically decide whether we want to look into it. And so having you all here and give us your feedback on that will help us try to determine if we want to, move forward with possibly notification. So you may change the way we do things now. So tonight, listening to your comments, anybody has any other comments, we'll gather that information. We'll ask staff to discuss it and look into other communities and how they operate. I will tell you, I agree with Penny. I think 60 days is too long. I think if we're trying to promote people building and that process, I feel like 60 days is going to be pretty lengthy and may steer people away. Maybe how we notify would be the change, or 30 days instead of 60, or 30 days instead of 15, 2 weeks. So
I've spoken with the Attorney General's office, and he related to me that there's the Sunshine Act. I'm sure some people may know what it is. I don't know an awful lot about it, but he thinks that he can't discuss information on the phone. So they just send you a packet to read. So, and he did share that there may be some way their office could assist us with the issues we've had with this land on Roland Street. This is the third time. It's a charm. And it's always the same process. So it puts us in a situation where it looks as though we don't want this land to be developed, and that's not true. I think it would be beneficial to the neighborhood if we did have housing there, but it needs to be the right kind of housing. And we have not been respected as neighbors in this area regarding the development of whatever is going to happen here. You know, we hear about it when somebody's pulling up on the parking lot to say they're here to put signs up or whatever. But thank you for your time. I just wanted some clarification.
No problem.
on that.
Could you give us your name and address, please?
My name is Dorothy Jones.
And your address?
My address?
Yes, correct.
517 Roland Street.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Regarding your sunshine request, actually, the minutes of this body are posted on the city website, and they're accessible to anyone. Is that correct, Eric?
Yes. I mean, the minutes don't get officially approved until the next meeting.
Right, but
you know, for the matters that proceed to the city council, that we do have the unapproved excerpts that get forwarded to them.
And
But
the,
yes.
and the other thing, this body is established by state statute. Is that correct, Dustin?
I believe that's accurate.
Yeah. I think this body and the Board of Adjustment are the two city commissions that are established by state statute. So that's where we derive our ability to make the decisions that we do.
I would also add that if you do have a sunshine request, the city's website has a link specifically for submitting those requests that go to the city clerk, and then we'll gather the requested records, and then I actually am the one who reviews them, and then we would release them to you. So we do those every single day. So if you have any requests you want to make, please utilize that resource.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I forgot to give NAACP.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
East High Street, downtown, between Harrison and Central.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, any further comments from anybody in the audience? Does anybody else have any further comments, suggestions? Sure.
I thought 60 days might be too long.
Okay. Start high, right? Start high. In negotiations, you always start high.
2 weeks is something reasonable.
Okay. So I think if everybody's, go ahead.
Is it something kind of?
I don't think we vote on this. It's
We don't.
just a conversation.
Kind of,
wanna-
we just
do we want to have to
direct staff to look into
Correct.
what other cities in the state are doing, kind of if there is a notification process?
I believe that's the consensus, is that we would look into it and take their suggestions and see what other communities do and leave it up to the staff to maybe propose a plan or something of that nature. Sound good?
Okay, so Mr. Chair, we will do some background research on it and try to get a report back to you. We could leave it on the agenda for the next meeting. I will preface that by saying and warning you that we have a very full agenda at the next meeting. In addition to the case that was continued this evening, we have a number of cases that we have not yet unrolled and, you know, to start the process on. And so, but I know that it's a number of cases. I believe the count may be 5.
So basically what you're saying is if we have a pretty lengthy agenda that you may not talk about at the next meeting, right? Depending on the...
We will work toward it as a work item,
Got it.
but the pending cases, you know, will always take priority as they're submitted by the applicants and have to be held on certain timeframes.
Okay, thank you. Working on it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, I believe that's it. Thank you for coming, and I declare this meeting adjourned. Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, sorry.
did we have Tom run the gauntlet?
Oh, yes. We got a new guy.